There are 4 audio recording devices and 1 video recording device. Okay. All right. First thing on the payroll is the warrants to get the bills paid. That's already happened. You just reviewed, got those signed. Minutes of August 11th. You guys, I wasn't here, of course, but give me a second to review them. I can at least ask questions to make sure I'm up to date.
How you do it with all
Okay.
I have a few edits, Todd, and what I did before the meeting was give Lynn a copy of them, because they came, thanks for getting those out to us as quick as you did. My memory is somewhat limited, so it was good. But the first edit is on page 205, and it's after, it's about half down after the sentence, a total figure of around $71.50 would need to be spent for the work. And what I did, Lynn, is the sentences that were affected, I highlighted them in yellow. Okay. So COLA brought to the Select Board's attention a paragraph that stated that any money remaining after the restoration should be returned to the general fund unless otherwise directed by the town meeting floor. So, to the extent that that's an edit, you have it there. I don't have the original here. I read that paragraph. Then after the motion, I inserted a paragraph. Can I just see the copy for a second? Yeah, I made an edit within this paragraph, I should say, because FTL also questioned the board of their opinion regarding canoes being left along the edge of the lake. There are so many canoes left through the winter causing problems. The board felt the commission should put it on their park agenda for discussion, perhaps putting an ad in the paper and giving a deadline for vessel removal. And if that is not met, locks will be cut and canoes could be given away, auctioned off, or sold. So, to the extent that that's different than the first one. On B, at the very bottom, Kohler fell.
Under new business, B,
I'm sorry,
page 3 or 5.
page 3. And after the sentence that says a draft letter as Ted Murray and other district towns did in support of getting funds returned to the district towns, I inserted and edited, Kohler said that although he agreed in principle with the contents of the Bucklands, Coleraines, and Shelburne's select board letters, it was his personal policy not to trample on the offices and responsibilities of other duly elected officials. So that was an insertion there. And at the end of that paragraph, after continued discussion, the board decides not to join the other towns in writing a similar letter to the superintendent and let Ted Murray's letter stand. And then the only other change was that I thought was in D, at the very end, when we received Wayne Gardner's resignation letter, and that from the townhouse steward and town hall building committee, I added the word with regret. You got that, regret?
Yep.
Oh, okay, so ignore that one. I must have, that was at the end of the session.
You want
Is that it? Okay, I'll make a motion to accept as amended the minutes of August 11th.
I'll second that.
So, before we move on to a vote, and just so I'm up to speed on what your folks' position was on the money for Mohawk Trail.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, would you please?
So, Buckland, Shelburne, and Coleraine sent a letter that you probably saw.
Yes, I do.
And personally, I weighed in on that and said, it's the school committee's job to protect the interests of the towns, not the select board to go over the top of it and do that. And what happened was Emily got up and spoke also. There was David Newell and Emily both discussing perhaps opposing views, or dissimilar views, I should say. And I asked Todd if he felt comfortable with that, because Ted Murray had sent a letter, either personally or as FinCom, I don't remember. And Todd said he did, and I offered that if he didn't feel comfortable with it, we could wait till this meeting, and then have you present and vote on it. So, does that help?
I mean, so your position on that is to...
I agreed in principle with the contents of the letter, just not the active writing.
I didn't speak to it. I went along with agreeing to have Ted Murray's letter stand. You know, he already sent it apparently. And my personal view on it was, I think, in a vast minority, depending based on what we saw other towns write. So I didn't see any point in bringing up any other further discussion on it.
My position on it, and I know we're getting away from the motion on the table, but while we're having the discussion, is that I'm not sure that I agree with the position that the other towns have of getting the money back as fast as we can. intent, but I do think that we should be active in creating a dialogue with the school committee and the superintendent's office on what's going to happen to that money. Okay? If that money can go and offset, what purposes is that money going to be used for? That certainly could be used to offset the borrowing that was voted in the spring.
Let me share with you.
And those, that type of thing. I mean, if eventually it comes back, or eventually we see the big benefit in that, but I think I certainly think people should be watching and looking for what the plan is on how it's going to be used.
And I think the district has a stabilization account, so if it means our assessment's lower in the future, for a year.
That's what actually did happen, was there was a school committee meeting on Wednesday of that same week. I went to it, and the 3 letters came up in that meeting, and what they decided was we have a system in place to deal with this sort of thing. Reimbursement doesn't come until January and June of next year anyways.
Right.
And to the extent it goes into the E&D, the excess and deficiency account, and to the extent that it goes over 5%, it reduces the assessment for the various towns. I didn't get up and speak to it, but it seemed reasonable to the people there.
Right, this idea of, demanding the money back without putting some thought to it, I think is a little, I'm not saying it's wrong, I just think it's jumping the gun. In my world, just a little bit. So anyway, the motion is to accept the amended minutes.
Right, I don't think the discussion impacts that motion.
No.
Okay.
I just wanted some clarification.
Yep.
While I had a chance to throw my 2 cents in. Any other comments, questions?
No.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. I'm abstaining, so it's 201. That's good. Very good. And business. All right. Senior Center, first on for new business, Senior Center long-range plan.
And
Wayne, were we looking for?
Doug was
Mr. Field.
hoping to be here as well, and since I don't see him, maybe we need a little more time.
He can show up anytime. All right. We have a fall festival town hall use application. Trying to take them in order here. So, shouldn't surprise anybody, the Ashfield Fall Festival Committee would like to use the town hall on October 9th, Thursday, October 9th through Sunday, October 12th. Generally from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. I believe all 3 of us are familiar with Fall Festival and how it works. So they have paid the fee of $225. Upper and lower hall. So nobody else has done the inspections at this early date, of course, but I mean, if it's the same as what we've done for the last 30 years or more, 40 years, anybody have a problem or a question about what needs to be done to approve it?
Signature for 3 people.
Signature for one. Select board chair.
Okay, and I'll make the motion that we authorize the chair to sign this town hall use application for the Ashfield Fall Festival Committee, dated 8/10/14.
Second? I'll second it. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Uh,
Aye.
Abstain. Abstain. Yeah.
Oh, you're on the committee. It's nice to get an application that far in advance of using it, instead of sending in an application a week before. Okay. We'll come back, if nobody minds, we'll come back to the special town meeting warrant. How about if we skip ahead here, because I see people interested. Ashfield Lake, and you spoke about it, it was in the minutes. And Ron, you had sent that you wanted this on the agenda. Was further discussion about the invasive weeds in Ashfield Lake.
So, well, basically,
We got Kyle here.
yeah, we have a number of experts. Gail is here, and we have Park Commission here, and ex-Park Commission, but there's an invasive species that was identified in Ashfield Lake this last week, maybe a week and a half ago, called fanwort. And rather than try to interpret what it was, if we could call on Gail, she could give us a first-hand sort of account of what they discovered, and what the extent is and what the possible cleanup is. So,
I don't have a problem with that.
okay.
Gail, you're up.
Gee, you
So you'll speak
The
louder.
Emmys are tonight, right? Okay, so there's this, fanwort is an invasive species that's easily broken, I should have rehearsed, by fragments. It's easily spread. A team of biologists from ACT, Aquatic Control Technology, I got their name from Les Garvin. They did it for free. They did a loose survey of where it was in the lake. It's kind of scattered around. There's one spot I see where it's a big circle. There's nothing else growing near it. It's a submerged plant. I call it golf course pants green. You know, those little crocodile pants. It's very bright green. And if it spreads, it would be the end of Ashfield Lake as far as I'm concerned and as far as biologists are concerned. And we've positively identified it as the fanwort. And the next steps are one method of removal once they GPS where it is. And there's a question of who would GPS, whether it's a dive team or these biologists that found it in the first place. Where was I? Yeah, they recommend I have the name of two environmental firms that are actually teams of divers that go out and then they dive down. I think they loosen the plant and then they suction it out to try and get as much out as possible. And we've just seen it this year, but it might have been in the lake for a year. My big concern is how much might be hiding in all those lilies. And if it were really invasive, there are herbicides that can be used. And when I heard that word 20 years ago, oh no! But actually, they're very plant specific and safe. There are only two that are, legal in Mass. And I just think we need to get on it while we can. As far as cost, I don't know how it works. I guess we get estimates from the two groups as to how much it would cost. And I don't, so I told them, I did email them and ask them to send you a brochure, but they also have websites, so they probably don't mail stuff anymore in this time. But their names are AB Aquatics and AE Environmental, Control. So ABCDE, yeah. AE Commercial Diving Service, they both have dive teams, and it's called, what they do is called DASH, Driver Assisted Suction Harvesting. And I think I emailed Ron, and maybe you, I didn't have your email. I wasn't trying to leave you out, Tom.
That's fine, that's fine.
So,
It's okay to be left out, so.
it's a lot on your plate. So that's it.
But the estimate, I think you said initially, just kind of initially, was something like $1,500 a day.
Well, that's what the biologist told me, loosely speaking. Yeah,
And I
but,
did some work on the internet. I've seen some other ponds where this thing got out of control and they were voting $50,000 or $60,000 for major treatment. So I thought if we could nip this in the bud at something less than $5,000, it might make really sound sense.
Do we have any idea what the origination
it
is?
could,
Does it come in on a boat, or does it
Boats,
come in from the
people.
beaver dam on the other side and move across, or?
I guess you'd have to ask the biologist, but it could be I think I asked them, they said it could be birds, it could be boats, and I said, I think we have one sign about cleaning off your boat, but people don't always do that. And
I actually saw something that said it's a favorite aquarium plant too. So people who empty their aquariums and in or around the lake would introduce it.
I know it's been in other lakes in Massachusetts because it's on the website. You guys have been pretty busy dealing with it. So,
Well, is it mostly, what locations? Is it on the west end?
it's in several scattered locations on the west end, in both coves, and there's some by the lake house. And I don't know how much is within the water lilies that are near my place. I probably shouldn't take a boat or stand up paddleboard out of my place because, you know, I think there might be stuff in there. And people probably should stay out of the water lilies so they don't spread it. And, I don't know how to get the word out except I think David Culp is writing an article about it. It's really important that the lay people do not touch this plant and try and pull it up because it wouldn't be like with the water chestnut, which actually we did the right way. If any breaks, it just makes it worse. So I don't know how to get the word out to non-Ashfield voters. Anyway, that's my thing.
Thanks, Gil.
I was in, last week, we were meeting of the Personnel Board and the Park Commission happened to be meeting, so I mentioned it to them. They were pretty quick to tell Kyle he needed to be here to talk about it, but they were real quick to be saying, you know, that they didn't feel it was necessarily a Park Commission problem, but we certainly wanted them in the information stream of what may or may not be happening and what's going on. Certainly there's not, you know, the entire lake is not part of the park.
Right, State. It's a great pond.
It's actually the kind of thing that the agency I work for deals with. Maybe I can contact somebody in Natural Heritage and see what they say about it.
That'd be a great help, I would think.
If we needed to get up to $5,000, do we have a place to get it without going to special town meeting? Is there a place that we can lean on that?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head. No, I mean, $5,000 would. But one of the things we're going to be talking about tonight is special town meeting for the 22nd of September. So,
I mean, it would be nice if there was a grant or other things, but if you wait a year, your problem can be twice the size.
Right.
You know, you get out of control. These other communities I'm seeing dealing with it is crazy. You know, they're just, you know, just
So the firm that, Gail, that came and looked at it, it's a non-profit firm or
No, they
consulting?
just happened to be in the area, two nice biologists, and they said, we'll check it out if you can give us dry boats, which we did, and the neighbor And they just did a really, loose survey, but they went all around, and they also identified the sample I had and found it in the lake also. It's aquatic control technology. And he mentioned that he would do a GPS, but I'm not sure if these dive teams do their own GPS, and he said his GPS would cost $500 to do a GPS survey of where it all is. I don't know how that works.
I think, any of these invasive species, in the water or out, knotweed is terrible. You get it in hedgerows and so forth. It really can cause a lot of problems. And I think you're exactly right. My experience is if you don't take care of it on the front end, you'll be working 3 or 4 times as hard to take care of it on the back end. The investment that I think needs to be made, besides taking care of where it is my concern is that it could very well, in my mind, originate on the other side of 112 in that swamp where the beavers continually seem to be. And it would be interesting to see, because the water gets quite deep, and that beaver dam is intact on the other side of the road.
I heard that had been broken by somebody and that the water went rushing through. That's what.
I wouldn't be surprised if it did
It
get
actually,
breached.
yeah, the Park Commission was worried about California and the water.
And I don't know who did it or
Yeah.
what, but Karen Sullivan lives near there, and she said all of a sudden,
State highway did that
because,
because the water was getting so high and it was going to plug that culvert. So it was easy, it was a whole lot better to breach that beaver dam than it was to lose the road.
so,
That was
I
at
don't
the
know.
time we were getting those really heavy rains.
but it's been here for a year, they said. I didn't happen to notice it last year, so.
They're estimating that based on how established it is?
Well, that's here is established, but it's very scattered out. If you can envision a spot here, a large area here.
Right. They just happen to be in the area? Or-
Yeah, and I just, for some reason, I got lucky. They answered right away and said we can come over today. So, and they did. And
Okay.
So I would say it's probably roughly a year.
Yeah.
I don't see any of these plants like Budweiser that have a born-on date.
No.
Kind of thing.
But I don't know the growth rate or,
No.
somebody knows how fast they grow, how fast they spread.
Right, I didn't even do any research if it goes through a vegetative stage and then a reproductive stage, or...
there is a flower, but I haven't researched that. I just know the part about easily spread with fragments, and once it gets going, like you can see there's this place where nothing else is growing but this bright green circle. It looks like a raccoon tail, kind of bright green.
Yeah, my concern is that, you're allowed to use small motors in the lake, right? Someone could go through that and just, there goes your problem double,
Easily.
Yeah.
And create downstream problems.
Yeah. Different than land invasive, knotweed and so on and so forth, is in the water, it's a relatively contained environment. It could just fill the lake really quickly.
What, the $5,000 figure, that's just a number?
I've been watching emails. I haven't been intimately involved with this, but if we could approve up to or something like that and go out to bid or, but get the money made available either through the park or through the select board, it's got to come from somewhere, right?
Apparently, all you need is, I think I have this right, you don't have to go through a whole bunch of state red tape, you just need a verbal approval from the Conservation Commission. I, of course, would double check that, but I'm not sure why that is, maybe just to speed things along, because the state...
Well, I do think it would be good to have Todd follow up, since he should have some contacts, since it is a state property.
You can at least advise us, I'm sure you deal with this all over the state, so you can at least point us in the right direction if it's not.
Now, Nina, you work pretty extensively, and
Well, we
Gail,
have
I'm
a
sure.
nice group of volunteers, Jeremy here, and Cory Van Gilder, and Carolyn White, and a lot of people have been gathering the Asian water chestnut. And that's kind of a controlled thing because it's important that we weigh it when we gather it and dispose of it properly. So that's why we have this loose group of friends and helpmates. And then we report to Silvio Conti Wildlife Refuge, Cynthia Bettner. And that's actually when I think Gail called or emailed Cynthia, and she's the one who said, oh, those biologists are in Pittsfield right now. So that's how it all kind of worked in our favor quickly. So Cynthia's another good resource. She's in charge of invasives.
For the
West
feds,
Virginia.
yeah.
Yes, for the feds?
Yep.
Okay.
For the Fish and Wildlife Service.
Okay. But we think we have a handle on the Asian water chestnut. You know, if you just keep pulling it, you can get rid of it, but you have to every year make sure it's not coming back. This is a different beast. We can't do it.
Well, I guess my question was, if we had people that were in the exercise of removing the fan wart, I mean, they shouldn't paddle themselves past any Asian water chestnut that they find. I mean, they,
I guess.
Wow.
I think Jerry says he went out today, was it today? And he didn't even find any, so.
Yeah, it was a very, I was out there for about 45 minutes.
Yeah, okay. So I think we've got a handle on that for this year.
See, the thing is with that, because I've been part of that team too, is if you pull it up real slowly, you get this root seed pod on the bottom. It looks like a mine. It's amazing, little sharp mark thing. And if you get it before it flowers, you can control it. And we had it down to something like 10 pounds one year.
When we started, it was over 100, then we let it lapse, then we got it down to 10, then we let it lapse, and now we're.
And then we let it lapse a
Probably
couple
have
of
about 40 pounds this year. So you have to keep on it, because the seed pods are viable for 12 years. When they say invasive, they know what they're talking about.
But we seem to be able to control that. I mean, with this group of people, and I think
And the group has grown, we've got a good network.
people who canoe and recreate on a lake are looking for it, and they know how to, and they know the reporting process. It works pretty good, and they don't have to spend any money on it.
I'm just trying to-
Thanks for the offer, though.
Yeah, well, if you're gonna have somebody in the lake that does that type of work, I think it would be kind of short-sighted to
Well,
go past
$1,500 a day, you want to concentrate on
might-
stuff that's really going to be able to get out of control.
You'd have to check too whether that particular plant works with their dive suction, whatever thing they
Vacuum.
do, with all those little sharp, I don't know.
There
But who
is,
knows what they'll find in the lily pad.
there is a building account for the library and the park. Right.
Yeah.
You were asking if there was a place to grab some money.
Yeah.
It's not big, I think it was like $300 a year, and we would let it, and I think that's what they're doing now, they let it back up until it's useful or something. It's not a lot.
Well, there were some of those accounts that you could use the interest, and then you could actually, if it got built up, that you could draw it down to a certain extent, but then you couldn't use it again until it built up to $10,000 or some such thing as that.
That'd be great.
We'll just have to do some research on that. That may have just been a library account, I'm not.
No, it's cool.
I'm-
Oh, your condition.
The one that I'm thinking about, because I remember that discussion was, a lot of that discussion was when they put the addition on the library. I'm brainstorming here, trying to find out.
So how,
Money's money's never a problem, just the occasional lack of it. That's
How,
that's
about
kind
how
of-
soon would, I mean, I know this is all complicated, but if we could actually do it before winter, it would be really good. I mean, I don't,
I would think that would be
That's
our
the
hope.
idea.
That-
yes?
That would be our hope if we can, the thing will be to try to find the money. See, we're in between fiscal years, Gail, so we kind of have to wait until we know what free cash is and that sort of thing. We have to get certified by the state. We're jumping the gun a little bit on this September 22nd. But, you know, maybe there's an account that we can identify as overfunded already or some such thing as that. Try to find a way to skin the cat, but this sounds like we're pretty much all in agreement at this time that it needs to be one of the pots on the front. Okay? Any other discussion on that?
I'd like to ask Gail, are you getting a proposal from the two? To what
No,
extent are you involved?
I emailed them to say how do we proceed, but I thought that would not be my, I mean, I'd be glad to, but I thought maybe you guys should do it, or I mean, I was gonna do a little more today, but I didn't know I was coming here, but, I mean, I can email them and say, what is your, how does this work? What are the steps? What do you charge for the initial visit, blah, blah, blah. And
Do I understand the GPS survey to be something like a reconnaissance survey where they go out for $500 and they survey the lake, and wherever there's a colony of this stuff, they mark the point, and then they have some idea of how big a problem it is, then they can get you a proposal, probably, something like that.
Yeah, I didn't know if we should have the dive team do that. It sounds like one of the companies does it themselves, or have the biologists do it, so it would be useful to see what their charge is. But I could email them some questions.
I'm just concerned with how we, other than the dollar point of view, which Tom's talking about, who's driving this thing? You know, we should be getting proposals and estimates and get everything ready so that we can expend the money if we need to. How big is it? Does it fit in a
Well, I
bread
can
box?
ask them to send you some. I mean,
Well, you could send it to Mary, and you could coordinate with Mary. What do you think, Tom?
I think that's exactly, if you are willing to take the lead on that, to help us gather that information, I think that would be great. I mean, you obviously already have the contact.
yeah, I wasn't clear what the email was for you, Mary. If I had information for you.
It's adminassistant@ashfield.org, and you can find it on the website, but I can also give you a call and make you
All right.
Thanks, Gail.
That would be a great help.
All right.
That'd be a great help. And you'll follow up with the appropriate people at the state to guidance, and
Yep, I will.
could they have some extra funds kicking around?
Sure.
Take it out of school transportation or some such thing as that. All right, that's great. That's great. All right. I wanted to have before we get on to old business, that Ashfield wastewater treatment plant budget discussion. We had all those meetings in the winter, building the budget and so forth, and Nancy Hoff came in from the sewer department and discussed the budget and what it was, how it was presented and the things that they were doing. Hey, well, I think you were here too, right? Were you here that night?
I don't know if I was here that night, but still on commission, still commission at the time.
Yeah. So, it built into that budget was a 3% increase for the employees, for the operators. And a 3% increase. So as the select board on town employees, we had built the budget except for the sewer budget. We had built that around a 2% increase. So the treasurer would like some clarification as to what the increases should be. My position is fairly clear that the sewer commissioners are in charge of what goes on down there through the enterprise fund. Even though they are town employees, they're employees of the sewer commission. I mean, I've been there. I really don't want to be in the middle of getting the reports on how much effluent is going in compared to how much is going out and all the state regs. I've done that, been there, okay? But the treasurer wants clarification that is it a 2% increase or a 3% increase because all the other town employees had a 2% increase. Again, my position is that it was approved by the sewer commissioners. It got past the select board when we went through the budget process. It easily made it past the finance committee, and certainly town meeting didn't have any problems at all. So, any input? I mean, it needs to be discussed so we can give the treasurer direction as to what the correct stand is. There's a bit of consternation in digging in, and I'll make a motion that the select board direct the treasurer to pay the salaries of the sewer commissioners of the sewer employees as directed by the sewer commissioner.
As determined in the budget previously.
That was voted on at town meeting.
I'll second that. Put it on the table to talk about it. What do you think, Todd, as a former commissioner?
I think that you're absolutely right. The sewer commissioners work on that budget, they set it, they bring it before the select board, which there's every opportunity for us to question it and ask them to make changes at that point in time.
I do think that it would be worth the discussion next year to just try to have a discussion with the sewer commissioners to get on the same page as the select board.
I know
Some of the increases aren't always just cost of living.
No, I know that there's a lot of discussion in the sewer commission about trying to get that position paid more equitably to surrounding sewer plants, because we're lagging far behind the majority of area sewer operators. So I know that's part of the discussion. That's what I would make sense. Yeah.
And that was part of the
Absolutely.
idea.
Absolutely, yeah. Because there were a number of years where we were either level funded or just the same cost of living as other town employees, and we're lagging behind what other sewer plant operators are getting. So,
Any other discussion? Lynn, so what was the motion?
I'm still working on
You're still right now?
to pay Ashfield wastewater treatment plant, to pay Ashfield wastewater treatment plant employees as the budget passed by select board finance committee and annual town meeting
And set by the sewer commissioners.
and set by sewer.
and it was to direct the treasurer.
Right.
Right, yeah.
And there was a second. So all those in favor say aye.
Fine.
Good. That's an issue past us. We'll come back to special town meeting. Let's go to Hilltown Networks. We originally tonight had an appointment with Chris Gray, but he had an email that he couldn't make it tonight to talk about his proposal for the wireless internet service and the use of town hall. So I see that the IT committee's here.
That's right. You have a,
So were you prepared to have some input on this? I guess
Yeah.
that's the... Huh?
yeah,
No?
you should have a letter from us in your folder.
Technology committee, gotcha.
Yeah.
What a good letter.
Unfortunate that neither Chris nor David Culp can be here for various personal reasons. So the rest of the technology committee is here to try and represent them best we can.
So yes, we did move forward and got as far as that public hearing, which was very well attended. And a lot of ideas were shared, and that was before your time. I don't know if you were here or not for that, but wasn't. Ron, you've been looking for a solution to this.
Well, really jump into something like this. I think our issue is much bigger than Chris Graves. I know Chris Graves' thing is on our agenda here, but I have been attending some select board meetings actually around I attended one on what Leverett did. And rumor has it that the executive director of Wired West has stepped down. And that's not necessarily giving me high hopes for Wired West, okay? I do believe in broadband connectivity for every house. Leverett, actually, their intentions are to deliver it to the house, not to the driveway, but to the house. I'm a big proponent of that. I also believe that Chris's great proposal would be a good interim proposal. But what Leverett had to do is they had to get a 2/3 town vote to be able to get the, not the override, but the debt exclusion situation there. What do you call it? The debt exclusion. So that, yeah, and they had a tax bond, and it was $3 million or something like that, and it raised everyone's taxes, the median household, by $300 and so on and so forth. And they had something like a 90% yay for it, people in favor of it. They're about the same population as us. My concern with Chris Gray's proposal is that trying to understand what the Plains represents, Ashfield Plains. And I'm assuming, I covered the water district, and the water district has 148 billing addresses and 400 to 500 population. So that's somewhere 25 to 30% of the population of the town of Ashfield. And I assume that the wireless technology might even go a little bit beyond that, because it goes up further into the hills and such. And my concern, trying to be as succinct as possible, is that if 1/3 of the folks in town are in favor, are provided wireless broadband, are they going to support the notion of the other 2/3 of the town getting delivery of fiber optics? You need a 2/3 vote. Why would they? I mean, just tell me. Everyone says, oh, they're going to jump. Believe me, they'll jump for fiber optics. But I'm not so sure in the town of Ashfield if that's absolutely true. So, personally, I would love to see Chris Gray's proposal hitched to a much bigger concept that the technology committee could develop, to do what Leverett is doing, to go out on our own, get our own funds. They've got a bunch of state funds and so on and so forth, and raise a tax bond. It's a big job, but I don't know if Wired West is going to be around to deliver. So I'm concerned. I'm concerned about the cherry picking that might go on with Chris. Chris is a great guy. I believe he can do what he says he can do. I'm generally in support of the contents of his proposal, but I'm nervous about the other 2/3 of the town. Therefore, I think that this, and I know you folks are prepared for that, should be represented by an article where the town is allowed to come and speak in a special town meeting. So I'm really in favor of this. I've received probably an equal amount of letters of proponents as opponents, personally, phone calls and so on and so forth. And I think that the town meeting floor should speak on this issue. That's my kind of personal gut feeling without something prepared.
Yeah, I concur. I mean, I would hate if we had an opportunity that everyone got broadband to their door and we didn't have the leverage of everyone in town because a third of the town already had wireless broadband. And if there's some way in the proposal that we had an end point to when that service would end, along with an establishment of wired broadband every door, then I'd be much more comfortable saying yes to wireless in town.
Well, that sounds easy to me. It sounds easy that it would be to set it up and have a 5-year contract, and at the end of 5 years, it could be renewable for another 5 years. You know,
Right.
it could be pretty much evergreen.
But that
Because it's 3 to 5 years away now, and wouldn't you hate to get to 5 years and have it 6 to 8 years away at that point?
Who wins the contract? Who renews the contract?
I mean, there were a lot of really good, it was an excellent discussion at the meeting. And there was concern for the building, there was concern for the steeple. There was an active concern, since we were having the fiber optics, since this is an anchor, and we already have it here,
Right.
to be able to utilize it and to be able to share information, even though it may not be as quite as large a system, to service the whole town. I think one of the things that has stuck with me is how many people have sent us letters in support and spoken to me on the street that are well outside of the proposed service area. And the message that I'm getting is that at some point, this town has to be for something.
Here.
That we have to start moving ahead and being able to use this technology. My personal fear is that if fiber optic was delivered to every house in 5 years, there will be a new technology that everybody's going to want. I mean, I agree totally that I don't think this proposal, even if it gets expanded throughout the rest of the town, is by any means the end of the line. This technology has changed. There's things that are going to happen that we're not even dreaming about. I'm pretty well vested in that. I do think that before we make permanent or semi-permanent additions to the steeple, I think we should have somebody look at it and figure out what the weights and so forth are. I think I have a pretty good idea that steeple holds a lot more snow than what these antennas are going to weigh.
It's been supporting, the mock-ups that have been up there essentially weigh what the real ones do. It's fairly insignificant. They're pretty light. They're very light. Personally, I don't see any issue with it. I don't have any concern structurally. If those things are going to cause a problem, we're in big trouble.
Well, I guess I would like somebody to sign off on that and at least appraise us of what that was going to be. Certainly the siren up there weighs a hell of a lot more. And we hear from that on Saturday at noon, and that's about it.
I would guess the bell weighs a lot more than the siren does.
Right.
So you're looking for an engineering study.
Well, I'm not saying that's what the board's looking for, but that would be an issue that I would think, an issue that should be addressed. The historical significance of the steeple and so forth, I think those were points that were really well covered and brought up, and certainly shouldn't be overlooked. One letter that we got has stuck with me pretty well, and I thought it was pretty well versed, was that as much as we love the town hall, it's not a museum. You know, we're working through these things all the time. I mean, you know, the second floor was a huge addition once the building got here. And all the modifications that have been made, including the siren, right? If you really think about what steeples were made for, it was communication. So I don't really think that's outside the realm. I have absolutely no problem bringing this to a town meeting. I think town meeting is a great tool, and I try to always support what the town meeting decides. It's probably a little bit of a shame we got tied up with other business before annual town meeting that we didn't put it on that. But hindsight's always 20/20.
I just want to bring up the point, I'll speak for Chris, because there's a little bit of an urgency to this, and I was hoping that we might be able to discuss it further and decide tonight. He has issues with foliage and how it will affect his signals in order for him to create a map of the areas that will get good coverage. And if we wait till even late in September, the leaves are a little thinner, it's just not as dense. It's going to give a different output than the kind of information that he needs and which he could get if he installed this now. And I can speak to a few of these other issues you brought up also. I should just touch on a couple of them. You talked about...
You only got the floor for a few minutes.
Okay, that's fine. All right. I'll be brief.
Before you go any further, you're talking about testing equipment that he's going to use to evaluate radio signals,
But
or
have actual, real working antennas in place.
needs to do that before he loses the foliage?
The
To
sooner
know
the
where
better.
to place things?
No,
or-
otherwise you might sign up customers that get good service throughout the winter, and then their service degrades next summer, and he
Right.
doesn't want to do that, leave people
Gotcha.
hanging.
Okay.
His stand has been from the beginning that he only wants to sign up customers if there's any foliage involved at all, any chance of that, he's only going to sign up those customers while the foliage is there in full bloom. And I think the concern is that you wait till the town meeting, then you got to finish the contract negotiations after that. By the time you get to where he can officially put stuff up there, it's going to be too late. We'll be waiting till next year to start doing serious rollout of
And
the...
we know the desire for broadband is deep and wide. And if and when it's available, people tend to sign up in droves. And the service he's offering is going to be different than fiber, in that fiber provides not just internet, television, telephone. And in fact, that's how the Leverett model got to work. The selectmen were able to understand and then present to the town how much money would be saved on their current telephone bills and their current internet service and so forth. And even though their taxes went up $200 or $300 per household, their savings more than made up for that. So once there was kind of a broad understanding of the savings that were possible, then it was much more agreeable, palatable, and acceptable.
And I think that the internet performance too is, I mean, the Wi-Fi is a big step over the DSL, but it will never approach what you get with the fiber. And the kind of bandwidth requirements as people are streaming TV now and so on, just continue to go up, and the Wi-Fi isn't going to keep up with that. So I don't share. I'm enthusiastic about trying to do something to get the fiber to the doors, but I don't share the concern that having the Wi-Fi support in town will somehow undercut that. I just don't think that's going to be a significant factor.
Is that because you think that once people have a choice between their Wi-Fi connection and a new fiber connection, they go for the fiber?
Yeah.
And I think Chris is aware of that too, which is another reason that there's a timeliness issue, is that he thinks that he really only has a small window of opportunity here before fiber to the home happens. And
It
so
puts
he
him out of
wants-
business.
Right,
And he knows that.
right.
He's just
So
trying to
he
get
sees-
something in place
Right.
for as many people as he
I
can
think he sees it
now.
as an interim stage as well.
David?
Yeah, to the structural engineering thing, I used to work at a truss plant up in Coleraine. I worked with a couple of structural engineers. A friend of mine had a post and beam house where he had a main beam that had like a 16-foot run that was originally 8 by 8. He cut it down, notched it to it's essentially a 2 by 4, and removed the post. And I told one of the structural engineers about this, and the guy said, "How long do you do this? How long ago do you do this?" I said, "About 9 years." "Has it fallen down yet?" "No." "Oh, there you go." And if these antennas have been up there for a year and they haven't done any damage, I don't think we have anything to worry about. From what I understand, it sounds like they would lessen the coat of paint. But
There are a few pounds. It's a,
Yeah.
minimal weight.
Just one other comment that isn't in the memo. It came out kind of in the last day or two discussions in terms of the antenna size and the complaints that people gave. That we initially put up 2 sets of antennas up there, the small ones that are still up there, and a larger set. Because most of the complaints that at least Chris was trying to monitor, and most of the complaints were relative to those larger ones, he's since decided that he would remove those. We removed them from the tower some time ago, from the steeple some time ago, and he's not proposing to use those at this point. So at least his feeling is that he's tried to address the most of the complaints that came in, just as another detail here. The ones that are up there now, I challenge people to be able to find them without somebody helping them.
I was amazed when the larger ones were up there, the number of people that had spoken to me about it and didn't even realize the larger ones were up there. I mean, you really had to be at the right angle to try to catch them. Any other comments on?
Well, also, I'm the Ashfield Associate Member Representative to Wired West. And Ron, I heard you express some concerns and so forth. The executive director did resign at the last meeting, and Holly was at that meeting. He had actually only been the director for I think 9 or 10 months. It's a volunteer position, and he found the duties just too demanding, conflicting with his family. So it wasn't anything to do with the Wired West falling apart. And number 2, Wired West won't be doing the wiring after all. They kind of had the rug pulled out from under them by Governor Patrick when Governor Patrick declared that the Massachusetts Broadband Institute would be the entity supervising the last mile construction, not Wired West. And part of the reason for that is that MBI did the middle mile, 1,200 miles of fiber, so they have experience and they know what they're doing. So, and Ashfield is not in danger of being cut out of the process by having a wireless or even our little DSL service here in the center of town. The only towns with problems are what we call the cable towns, Buckland, Shelburne, Conway, the towns that are half wired with cable. MBI has decided they're not going to run fiber. They'd rather somehow leverage what money they have to get Comcast to complete the wiring of those towns. So we're not in any danger of being held back or cut off.
Is that written somewhere, that policy that, wireless broadband won't affect the pricing or such? That's what you're saying, right?
Yes, that's what I'm saying, because that's been the policy right along. The only change that was made was just when they decided not to do Shelburne, Buckland, Conway,
Because
and I forget, there's Peru or Chester or somebody else. There's a couple other towns in our consortium that have cable, and they're going to go that route instead of fiber. But,
what is the status with wireless?
well, they were floundering for a while. They're still very viable because they did a tremendous amount of work in terms of research on poles and all the engineering that's necessary because they had hoped to do the project themselves. Now I think they're thinking more in terms of being perhaps an internet service provider on this new network. In fact, they're already an internet service provider. I believe it's for George Propane down in Goshen.
But they still need to run, someone needs to run the fiber.
Yes.
Correct, right?
Yes.
So
Yep.
why,
And that will be overseen by the Massachusetts Broadband Institute and paid for by, well, they're going to have a 40 million of the $50 million that Governor Patrick has promised for broadband expansion will be leveraged to the 120 million they hope to cover all it needs to.
So the obvious question is, what about the remaining 80 million?
But they're hoping to be able to get it from various other sources. I don't know what, that's all politics. That it's just sort of, it's one of those deals where you come in and say, look, I've got 40 million bucks I'm willing to plunk down if you can help me out with Department of Agriculture, maybe whoever. There are
I'm just
other
wondering
sources.
if we should take some initiative as a town now.
That's what I would like to do. I'm with you on that. I would love to see us go the Leverett route. There may be too much of a headwind here in Ashfield. I don't know.
Stay with Wired West. Pay the subscription to be a member of Wired West. Start doing the legwork for what Leverett's done. It's a lot of work, but let's go. Same population. We have more roads, more square miles. I know that. It's probably going to cost us more.
The only issue I have is that every town that does that will weaken the system that you have set up with
Not-
Wired West.
Not at all. Not at all. Any system like this, what they did in Leverett, or if we could do it here in Ashfield, will be built right off of the existing middle mile fiber that's here in town now already. It's just restarting now instead of waiting 3 years for MBI to get their crap together and do it.
Leverett, the minute
We had
Leverett
a couple
announced-
of elections to get in the way.
There's a lot of things that get in the way.
It's a big issue. I mean, they're talking population studies in the town, they're talking possibilities for businesses and everything. We're going to be part of a dying town if we don't get something here.
Oh, people can't sell their houses. It's being a real
Well,
problem.
I was even thinking this wireless, and correct me if I'm wrong, but having wireless set up right here in the middle of town would be a great asset for Fall Festival, wouldn't it?
Absolutely, the vendors count on it.
It would be a huge asset for the farmers market.
Absolutely.
Being able to do credit card.
Run those credit cards wirelessly.
Credit card transactions never creates less sales.
Absolutely.
Never creates less sales.
Yeah, now we got to keep up and we got to get ahead if we can. And that's part of why I'm feeling like it's important that we give Chris the okay tonight. Just go ahead, fire it up. I don't think it needs a whole town-wide vote. I don't think there needs tremendous discussion. I think we know the town is chomping at the bit for this kind of thing.
I think it makes sense from what we've just been talking about to maybe decouple the two efforts. I mean, I think we all agree fiber to the home is where we'd like to be. And we can talk about how to get there, whether it's through Wired West /MBI or whether we do something like Leverett. But I think that the proposal on the table, which is to do this interim Wi-Fi solution, can be decided separately.
Right.
Because it's not going to affect the other, I think.
Your last point, Andy, about, that the town is chomping in the bit, that everybody in town is straining in the harness, that they really want to get this going.
Well,
I walked out of that public hearing the night we had it and was disappointed that I didn't hear more of that. That was well advertised, it was well set up. I mean, I know it was, the moderator couldn't have done a better job, all right? But I didn't hear a lot of that. I did not hear the amount of enthusiasm and excitement at that public hearing as I expected. I'm not telling you there were not proponents. There were, but I didn't get that feeling.
Okay, well, getting people out to a public meeting is a very different thing from getting them to sign up for a high-speed internet service that's available. And I'll give you a quick example. In Conway, over in the Shropshire district of town, they just renegotiated a Comcast contract, and they brought in 11 miles of new Comcast cable. Very few people, there's 130 households, very few of those 130 households got up and did anything to make this happen. It was just a few of us that were working on it. When that cable came through, there was so far, there's a 90% take rate. That says it all.
Anybody else over on this side of the room have any comments to share? Yes.
Chris Farley, John Ford Road. Based on everything that I've heard here tonight, it certainly sounds, I'm in full support of this. It seems like it is definitely an interim solution, and the sooner an interim solution gets put in place, the better, I think. The sooner the people within the area that can get the Wi-Fi, the better. It doesn't appear to me to have a downside. So I support it 100%.
Carol.
Carol Grumman, 26 Barnes Branch Road. I have the northernmost piece of property in Ashfield. I'm not going to benefit from Wires West, but I think we need to do it. We need to have, as Chris was just saying, I think we need to have an interim solution while this other bigger piece gets put in place.
No, it's definitely used. If you notice the number of people that camp out on Elmer Store or anywhere where there's wireless.
Oh, yeah.
Paulette, you have your hand up.
Two things. One, I would have concern that we don't really have a contract flushed out. It seems like there are a number of issues that aren't yet resolved in that contract. That should be a concern. And number two, somehow the savings of $1,200 a year to the town seems meager for what's going to happen. Seems it should be a little more benefit to the town itself for this whole proposal. Because if it takes off, there's some money to be had, and there should be some gain for using the facility, the town.
Good point. David, you had your hand up.
Actually, I have a question, Tom. I was wondering how the letters ran. I mean, I hear what you're saying about the public meeting, and I couldn't make it to that meeting, and I'm sorry about that, but I was wondering how opinion ran in the letters the select board got.
I didn't quantify the letters that I received, but my perception was that it was 50-50.
Mine too. I'll chime in. And I received a number of phone calls, more phone calls opposed to it, people not comfortable, maybe they didn't even have email, than proponents with phone calls. So I came into this meeting thinking, what is the voice of the town? I mean, you guys, I appreciate it. You're the tech committee and everything, and I would expect that you'd be like that. And, but I don't have a clear majority vote by any means, in my mind, from the people who've been communicating.
Can I actually make an argument for me?
If you can do it quickly.
Yeah, I'll do my best. I'm also way out of reach of this thing. I'm never going to benefit from it myself. But I have noticed that there is a current in the town that is resistant to any change in the town, that wants the town to remain exactly as it currently is, or preferably take it back a little bit. I mean, I was talking a few years ago about burying power lines. So you could really, in the dust, the town would look like you're still living in the 19th century. One of the reasons I'm supporting this is I'm very suspicious of that resistance to all change, the need to keep the town under a glass dome. And putting up these little teeny tiny antennas that weigh a couple of pounds on top of the steeple would change that. And I think it's worth doing just for that reason alone.
Anybody else, any comments? Thank you so much for all your work. We'll take it up, and we're going to be taking up a special town meeting warrant here in a little while. Do I feel like there's a consensus that that's where this should end up?
Definitely, from my perspective.
Yeah, I mean, my personal opinion doesn't really matter so much. I think the opinion of the town at large is what matters. And the only way to get that is at a special town meeting. I would vote to go and put this in right now if it was up to us. I think the town needs it. I think the town needs broadband to every doorstep. There's just so many missed opportunities for the residents of the town with this lack of technology. It affects me personally, it affects my family personally, and I'm sure it affects every family in this town. But it's the town overall that needs to approve it.
My position is that I think it should be on the special town meeting warrant. I think that is absolutely the right place to have the discussion and see the vote and have it happen. But I will go on the record to say that I support it. I'm not putting something on there because I can't make up my mind. I do support it. I really do think that it would be a good service here, even if it is only the planes.
For a few years.
For a few years, that it would help the people that can receive the service. Mm-hmm. It would give us an idea of if there's hiccups and delays in other things on maybe what the next step could be, even though that may be an interim step. And I think it would be great for commerce in the business, really the business part of town.
If we were to vote for it tonight, what's the worst thing that could happen? Get voted out?
I think it would be the opportunity to cause a lot of turmoil where no turmoil is needed. That's what I believe.
Okay.
Well, I just want to point out that I think you're running the risk of, you're all in favor of it, but I think you, I'm going to use that phrase, kicking the can down the road to special town meeting, that you run the risk of losing the proposal. Because if Hilltown Networks is going to miss out on a whole year, it just might not make, business sense to continue it. It's already been in the works for over a year trying to get passed. And I wonder why, if you all agree, you all support it. I guess that's the question you asked. What's the worst? Why not just approve it? And
Well, the point is, it's not a monarchy. We're not the kings up here. We do the bidding of the town.
Right, but aren't there a lot of decisions that you make for the town as representatives of the town? And then you just it's a judgment call whether you feel like you can do that or whether you feel like you really need to have the town vote on it.
I really do. And it's the town's building,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the town. I think a lot of people need to get educated on what this can do for them. I mean, I think that's a great point over, Conway Ashfield line that nobody really got excited about it, but everybody wants it.
Yeah.
But the sticking point for me, I support it. I want it to happen. Not that only a few years ago I was, labeled I'm afraid of all this technology. And not that I necessarily think that I would use it, although I'm sure I would once I got a taste of it. But, I certainly enjoy our new service that we have in town, and
when I'm here at the meeting to see how fast I can get hooked up and handle all that information. But the sticking point for me is we really, I think, did an excellent job in the public hearing. And I didn't hear the support. I walked out of that public hearing saying I thought I would hear a lot more support, that would take up a lot more time. And I think at special town meeting, we'll know, we'll get that. We will absolutely get that. David, you've been up a couple of times, and
Yeah.
Wayne is brand new, and it is moving on here.
Feel that the only question I haven't heard answered, by putting it into town meeting, we don't get it. If that is what is going to happen, then it should be voted on tonight. And I know that Mr. Culp is not here and Mr. Graves is not here. But they bring up an interesting point. We have houses in town right now, and another one probably coming down. They're not going to be saleable to young people because the connections aren't here. One house has changed hands 3 times in 2 years. There's a problem here, folks. We can't keep beating it off. If the gentleman says he's not going to be able to do it, it's put off another year, then frankly, it should have been voted on tonight, or there should be a special meeting and be voted on by the select board, in my honest opinion. Thank you.
Is everybody, without reiterating the same thing over and over? Yes.
Just one last point, and what is the date of the town meeting?
28th of September.
22nd.
So by then, the chances of having a hurricane or some storm that takes off a lot of the foliage of the trees is highly likely. And again, this is going to postpone it easily for another year. I mean, it seems like we have enough information tonight. It seems like there's huge consensus. There's been a town meeting about it. I would hate to see this kick down the can for another year as well.
Well, I'm only one member of the board, and I'm not, I will admit that probably this should have been addressed earlier. We lost track of it in the midst of a lot of other things that life brings our way. But I always resist making a decision when I feel that somebody's trying to hold a gun to my head, and I can't control other people's decisions. I can't. If we get to September 22nd at 9 o'clock and the town is voted, let's go, let's move forward, let's do that, and he decides not to do that, I have no control over that. And I have no control over that, and that's his decision.
In terms of having enough years in the contract to make it economically viable, then we can write enough years in the term of the contract to make it economically viable.
It would cease to be economically viable if broadband in
Right.
the town.
You don't want to do that.
You'd be in the
People would
contract.
unsubscribe. People would unsubscribe.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, because broadband's so much better.
Gotcha.
I mean, fiber.
Right.
All right,
I promise I'll talk fast.
is it something new?
I believe it is, yes.
Okay.
I appreciate all 3 of you wanting to throw this to the town. I understand it's a town building, and it is a town decision, and I think that's honorable. I think that's great. I'm suspicious that you will not get the town's opinion on a special town meeting in the evening on 22nd of September. You're going to get a small, very vocal, very politically active portion of the town that is going to come out and make its voice heard. I think this town has a sizable sound majority, and I think you ought to take their interest in consideration as well. I'm done with this.
See, my plan is that there will be 2 very vocal moves at special town meeting.
We'll do our best.
Okay. Wayne, I really am anxious to get this over with. Do you have something?
I apologize if you took it as a challenge to you personally or as a group. It was a statement of what I'm afraid of, not a challenge.
No, and I didn't take it as a challenge, but I just, that is my human nature, that if
I understand that I won the hour.
I can't. All right, any other discussion on this?
thanks so much for all of you coming in. I know it's, and thanks for all the work getting this all itemized. Got all my talking points already done for me. Thank you.
Did you get the copy of the draft of the warrant?
Yes, have it.
Okay.
Okay. All right. How about Mary? How about
Voting to adjourn.
Okay, good.
They just asked, Doug said he probably try to make it, he didn't get the way you want to address the,
I don't want to go on the rest, let me put it that way.
We're a long way from the end of the meeting, but if you have something to share, I'll backtrack to that. We'll have that section.
Well, if that's still promising, I'm ready to speak if necessary.
Let's do it. Let's do it now. You got my attention.
Well, each of you has received a copy of the letter, I'm sure. I don't have mine here because I wasn't planning to speak.
no, actually, we haven't, that's the problem. We haven't.
I haven't
So
seen
maybe we
anything in
should
my
put it on.
email.
Hmm?
I haven't seen anything in my email.
No, no, and I haven't got it, and I called today, don't know why, but so.
I will go get my copy.
But maybe we should put this on the 8th?
Wayne, let me ask you this. Is this senior center urgent? We're going to be meeting again on September 8th.
That's a question that I would find hard to answer because it involves all three towns.
I would say if it has not been emailed to us and the information as it's presented, it's not carried
It's
over.
fair to your liaisons to be presented at the earliest possible situation. I would serve a courtesy copy. I'm not the liaison.
Yeah, all right, well,
I know Joe Judd is bringing it up to his people. I know,
so we'll get to read about that in the paper.
yeah.
Can I,
Here.
Doug did send to us an email. I saw it went to Mary,
On the
and
senior
you forwarded it. I'm looking for it. I thought it was on the senior center. Hold on a second.
I get to go watch them, and I don't remember seeing that, but it's possible I missed it.
Just
I don't remember seeing what anything to do with the senior side.
If we move on, then I can look for it, and we can always address this later.
Okay.
I would love for us to get our ducks in a row and take it up on the 8th. That's what I would love to do.
And
I
if
think the more information
I'll
we have,
shows up later.
okay?
And if I get a hold of Kathy with the letter tomorrow, then I'll forward it to
The
you.
vote of the board was for the liaisons to present it to the select board. That's why you didn't receive a direct
Okay.
copy.
Okay. All right, well, that's probably more than we're going to digest in 15 minutes sitting here, so. We'll put it on the agenda for the 8th.
Unless no Joseph.
Maybe we'll get that information. Okay, let's go to this before we get into special town meeting. Town council letter to Tennessee Gas.
And nothing came back, which is to say that town council could not find an argument that the select board could prevent surveying by Tennessee Gas Pipeline
Off of the,
on the
Public
public
ways.
ways.
that,
So she was going to look into it,
She was going to look into it. When we spoke,
but she didn't find anything to the affirmative.
Right. Right. If she had found something, she would put it in a letter to Tennessee Gas Pipeline from town council.
And she said that to you, that she didn't.
Well, I checked with Tina, Dottie and I had gone over it, that if there was no letter received, she didn't have it.
She didn't just forget about it.
No.
no, she didn't forget about you because I spoke to her on
Good.
Thursday on other business.
Okay.
And she brought it up and said that, public ways, they got a registered vehicle there. They're good.
and squared it.
And she was pretty sure that was the case. The way we left it was she was going to look further, but if she doesn't have it,
Okay. Which I kind of thought would be, I mean, it's a good try, but I mean, it's, I'm certain of that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, special town meeting.
So what you'll see in there is a couple of different versions of, or the one thing that you have to do at the special town meeting is an FY14 invoice. There's not enough money to cover it, so it'll be a 9-cent vote at a special town meeting to get that paid. I did put out a call to all other boards and committees and departments, asking if anybody else had anything. Nothing else did come in. There are a couple versions there because I may be discussing the Hilltown Networks proposal. Didn't know how the board would decide to go, whether they would vote on it or decide to take it to a special town meeting. And there are two versions of that. One is longer with some input from the IT committee, and one is shorter, and I can also make edits. This is the last full meeting before the special town meeting. However, if you want changes to the warrant, I can make those changes. And you could set it up so that you would sign it sometime individually.
Yeah, if we signed it by the middle of next week, we would be fine. It's just we can't sign it on our meeting day of the 8th and have the meeting on the 22nd. So the money article here, this Article 1, this 44908, to the best of my knowledge and everybody else's, is that it was a little bit of a clerical error with invoices being stuck together. You know, the auto parts store sent, 6 invoices all together, and a couple of them got stuck together when they got processed, and they happened to be invoices that were for, let's say there were 6 invoices, and 3 of them were for the highway and 3 of them were the fire. Well, these 2 happened to be ones that were used by the fire department. But
And that error wasn't discovered till
after the close of business, well after. So I don't really think, but it will take a 9/10 vote. Now, when we're voting from vocational school expense, that's this year's appropriation.
it is the FY15, right? And that's why you need a 9/10 vote, because we're paying an FY14 invoice out of FY15 funds.
This is not the, I was expecting maybe there would be some more when we first started this discussion, but this is it.
I thought there would be 2.
Good, well, okay, that's good. That's a good sign out of all the invoices that get processed in the course of the year. So are we in agreement that we would like the internet proposal on? That would be Article 2.
Yes.
Okay.
What about were we going to try to pull up some money for the invasive species?
That's what, I wanted to just kind of get a handle on.
On the first 2?
So there are 2 drafts of Article 2. I kind of like the short version.
Draft number 2. I like that one as well.
This one where it goes whereas and so forth and so on, I think it gets so wordy that nobody really wants to pay attention to it.
And it handcuffs you when you're trying to actually develop the project.
So on this draft 2, it says, see if the town will vote to approve Hilltown Network proposal to provide a high-speed broadband wireless internet service to Ashfield using town hall steeple and the fiber optic connection to town hall. Does that seem to cover?
My only issue with it, I like short also. I like simple, plain vanilla. But what I like about this one is the following. It's this whereas, developed by line. Whereas an agreement based on said proposal has been developed and reviewed by town council, comma, with negotiation of comments to be completed. So this one, if I take it verbatim as it stands, it almost sounds like to approve Chris Gray's proposal and not negotiate it. You know, it seems too carte blanche. To see if the town will vote to approve Hilltown Network's proposal to provide high-speed broadband wireless internet service to Ashfield using the town hall steeple. I guess it could be interpreted that there's room to move in it, to work on a contract,
I
right?
see what you're saying with that one word there.
Yeah, to approve the proposal as it
The
stands.
existing proposal, yeah.
So we could say to approve and negotiate, or to, is some of the
Move
comment that
forward
Paulette
with,
brought up was a good comment. Huh?
To move forward with, or to?
I think that maybe the wording change should be to see if the town, give me a second here, to see if the town will vote
About to negotiate. No?
to authorize the select board. See if the town will vote to approve and authorize the select board relative to the proposal by Hilltown Networks to provide high-speed broadband. Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Say it again.
Huh?
Say it one more time. To see if the
I'm not even
town,
sure what I said the first time. How am I going to say it again?
initially said to see if the town will vote
Vote.
to authorize the select board.
To authorize the select board
How about to negotiate?
to authorize. Okay. They authorize us, it's not just to negotiate, it's to work through, it is to negotiate, but it's to work through all the details that may come up. I think it should have something in there authorizing the select board specifically to move forward and do it.
See if
The
the
wording
town-
is losing me at this moment.
See if the town will vote to authorize the select board to negotiate with Hilltown's networks to provide high-speed residence.
We don't want to negotiate.
How about
My position
finalize details with Hilltown Network to provide? And finalizing the details could include anything in the contract, it could include everything about it. We do have a lot of history on what's been recommended by the community.
How about to see if the town will vote to approve Hilltown Network's proposal to provide high-speed broadband wireless internet service to Ashfield using the town hall steeple and fiber optic connection to town hall, and authorize the select board in all negotiations and contracts.
That would be fine by me.
Instead of trying to stick it in the middle.
So say the last part again, and authorize the select board
And authorize the select board to
So quick question, would you authorize the select board to finalize all the details or to sign a contract, but you sign contracts anyway?
Right. I don't think that's necessary. I think it's just, there needs to be some authorization. You know,
Right.
the vote of the town and the select board get behind it and get it done. That's what I'm looking for.
Yes. Yes.
In principle, I'm fine, I'm just.
I understand, so you're trying to figure out what I said, or are you still right?
No, I'm trying to figure out what you said.
Okay, so we go right to the comma before our act relative to.
Yeah, I'm there.
Okay, and authorize the select board to negotiate any and all contracts
Related.
or act relative.
That sounds good.
Huh?
Yeah, that's good.
All right, so Article 3, fan war. How are we going to do this?
Well, we're looking for approval of spending X number of dollars for,
I'm
I
trying
don't know
to
if it's
think.
just a study or if it's also a remediation of this problem.
Probably both.
I'm just trying to think of where the hell we get the money from. Because we can say to vote a sum of money. We can put that in the warrant and not mention it. I do think we should try to figure out, somebody's gonna have to figure out where the money's gonna come from. And I would just as soon have an answer before the finance committee asks us.
Makes sense.
Let's simplify it.
Yeah, and you know what, they'd be glad to do it. They'd be glad to do it. I'm just going to find my expense report to see what we have here. Oh, boy, it's everything we got. See, I didn't check my income before I came in. There's the expense report.
And there's one in the back for this team. I just printed off.
What's our last projection on vocational expense?
I have it in there. In the folder that you have with STM toward the back, there is a blue note on, it's a blue sticking out, you see it there, on some voc information, roughly. I think that I figured, and I checked it with David.
Sticky notes and I don't get along. all
Yeah,
the
sorry,
time.
I didn't know it was going to go this way. So I talked to David Newell about that this afternoon. I think, does it say, you have all my information here. Something less than, there's about, roughly 80,000 we hope we won't have to use. It looks like we won't have to use. David has been, as you've seen, doing a lot of number
I
crunching.
see he's just got another letter out here. Oh, here it is.
So based on his latest calculations, and as I say, around that time this afternoon, that's the estimate of,
460,000.
is the estimate of what we would spend.
So,
And the expense report is in there, and I think we have 530.
yeah, vocational expense, we have 540, 537.
537.
537.
decided, I mean, that Article 1 is 449. So roughly, there's going to be about $80,000, $90,000 in there. Unless 3 or 4 kids move and want to go to vocational school. But, you know, we wouldn't have control over that if we were maxing out the budget that we voted to begin with. You give me just a second, let me look. I see a note in here, Mary, about under STM, it says something about fiscal 14 tax bills. They're not sending any, or? There's a note in this folder. You want to get your information back?
Yeah.
And there was something about tax bills. Maybe you were thinking there was a problem somewhere.
It might have been some notes from earlier that relevant to that. Relevant, sorry.
Before I look too far, is there, are you thinking this $5,000, or is about what we need to look for, or we just put in a sum of money?
From what I see, if it's $1,500 a day, and estimated for a couple days worth of work, that's $3,000. It could take 3 days of work, maybe. I mean, I don't think they have a real clear assessment on how big an issue it is. And that there's some money in there for doing the survey. If they need to, you know, $500, $600 to do the survey. So I think $5,000 or $5,500 should really cover it, but I don't know. I haven't even seen the money myself.
Well, the only thing I'm ever good at is underestimating what anything should cost. And when people come at me with numbers fast and loose, I'm always amazed how much bigger they get.
Yeah.
But in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, we'll have a lot better idea.
That's the idea.
And that would be the place where we can.
Maybe we don't get it all done in year 1, you know, maybe.
You can always do the old up to X number of dollars and overestimate it.
We go out to bid on it, do all the things that we need to do.
Just don't see anything in here that looks,
Right.
you know, that I can pick out right now that says we've changed.
Right.
Take it out of our FERCog core assessment, see how they like that. So why don't we make it a sum of money, we'll have that knocked down and we'll take it out of vocational expense.
Right, and don't we have to know that sum when we post the warrant?
No.
Next week?
No, we don't need to, we can say a sum of money,
Okay, and then we can discuss that.
and then at town meeting, we'll have more information.
Good, okay.
So it would be to see if the town would vote to transfer from vocational expense a sum of money what should we call it? Ashfield Lake Invasive Weed Eradication Account?
So, sounds pretty good.
Ashfield Lake eradication account. Somebody can find it.
Acronym.
Acronym for it.
It's Alicia.
Elysium?
Alicia.
CI.
To an account to be established for removal of invasive plants from Ashfield.
Something like that. How are we coming on? We got any news between the treasurer and so forth on the state? Have they done any, made any connections on our certification and getting that sort of thing done?
Not yet.
When is that due?
Hmm?
When is that due?
They normally certify in October.
Right, but
Okay.
I know Joyce is hoping it will be in September.
She's hoping.
Good. Well, maybe we'll have more knowledge by then.
I mean, if we feel like we're overfunded, and we can always, on town meeting floor, we can always change the account also. If the finance committee wants to take it from somewhere else, like select board salaries or something like that, we can do that. The town meeting can do that.
All right.
And we'll have a chance to look at the special accounts by then. There's not a new one ready yet, but I think it will be by
Is
then.
there anything else that we're thinking of that's coming up that would go on this special town meeting? I personally am not a huge lover of special town meetings, so.
I noticed that there's only 3.83% remaining in legal expense. Do we want to bump into that wall before we deal with that?
That's a good point.
Saturday the 12th.
And how much more?
Wow.
Let me find out.
No. 3.83 is.
That's
It's been expended. That's been expended.
Oh, for crying
I said I kind of looked at that and,
my apologies. Good.
You had me nervous for a minute, right?
Well, it's good out there, so it comes. I just wanted to, I was testing you guys. So no, nothing else from this end.
well, one of the reasons we started talking about a special town meeting was to come up with some kind of plan on what to do with if there was a better, more efficient way to handle the public document requests and open meeting law and that sort of thing. Must be that we're passing muster to a certain extent because they've slowed down here in the last month or so, but maybe the long days that people doing something else. But we were talking about possibly having another person just to kind of shuffle through those instead of.
To what extent, I'm always trying to assess data. And I know at one point you had some help come in to help sort through some of that stuff. Do you have the funding to have that person come back in? And because I'd like to know, especially before the special town meeting, if we do get something on it, what the numbers are, what the data says, because it's all about data.
Right.
Has it slowed down? What's the frequency?
It's-
Are there similar requests by different people, so many different things?
And mainly what I've been dealing with in the last few weeks are the appeals. So I've been dealing with
Appeals.
the Secretary of State and AG's office.
Yes, the boomerang effect. You think you have it handled and then it comes back to haunt you again. That was the discussions I was in last week. With the attorney general. His office. Which was fine. But that was one of the original things we were talking about was to have, and we didn't put in that special
you know, the special project staffing, we only have $1,000 in that, and the idea with that was for extra help putting together the town report. That was in our budget discussion.
But that is what we're talking about, maybe using a rule to do some quantifying.
But I
Maybe
think if we need to find money to handle this, you know, I think it's confusing to put it into special project staffing. You know, I think it needs to be.
Yeah, I think I was just talking about that as possibly a way to get some help to do some quantifying, not to really do beyond.
Not to do it on an ongoing basis, but it needs some catching up from some of the earlier reports.
There would just be a lot to do at this point to try to pull apart, end up pulling things apart and putting them back together again at the various stages through things. It would take a bit to do any quantifying. But I guess it depends on if, I think I did not give thought to an article about that because I wasn't sure that was something we wanted at this special town meeting. But
Well, I think after that June meeting, wasn't it June? It must have been June.
For July.
Yeah. And we had that meeting, I mean, actually, you know, it's an annual thing. Get boxed up to the point where everybody's frustrated and find a way to do it, and it ends up being a reason, or certainly an excuse for not getting other things done, you know? I mean, it's one of those things that how can you do, you know, shuffling balls in front of you and behind you.
So the article would be something to the effect of hiring an information clerk or something to that effect, to deal with these.
Yeah.
Well, we discussed everything from mediation to remainder of that meeting, I recall.
Right.
So, I mean, you could say to enter into a sum of money for a purpose of mediation. I mean, it could be that simple too, right?
Well, I think there's two issues. I mean, even if you did get into some mediation, and I think of it as two separate topics.
True.
Because even if you get going down to mediation and try to find out what the problems are and get to that point, you still have to handle what's in front of you.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, you still got to shovel through that snowbank.
Right.
So, you know, maybe what we're really talking about is two more articles.
I think you're right, because I think the mediation should be one of them. It should be, you know, putting out that olive branch and seeing what's really going on. And whether that's successful or not, then we might have to fall back on that other article for having an information clerk, whatever we're going to call it.
There's a lot of fronts here we need to address on.
Okay.
What's your pleasure? Do you want to try to hit both of them? I mean, I've given a lot of thought to this mediation business, and I'm not sure what would come of it. With all the communications that we've gotten, I've never had any clear idea of what the root of the problem is. But that might be that somebody with the magic touch would be able to figure that out.
Yeah, I think that the point of that, the exercise is to discover that. That's the point of it, is to discover whether or not there's something, you know, that there is something you can actually deal with. And if not, then we don't.
I mean, I look at two public information requests, one here, one here. Very, very lengthy. I know these two people know each other just because Ashfield is a small town. So much of this request is identical to this request, and I'll probably take recorders in that. And it borders on harassment. You know, it really does. And if we don't try to get to the root problem of this by mediation or something, we're just going to be reactive in dealing with the fallout of whatever it is that's driving the whole thing. So I think mediation is critical. However, there's this thing called workflow. Right now, Mary's just trying to do her job, and if half of her job is taken up, or 3/4, whatever that number is, I need to know the data with responding to the AG, then you need someone to do that. Or just tell me what in her position description you want to let go of so that she can do it. It's that simple, you know.
So I think, to your point, we're talking about two articles.
Yeah.
One for mediation, one for authorization to hire someone in case there's a need. So,
It would have to be someone capable of analysis. It really is. And responding to some of this stuff.
Well, doing the research and being the go-between to figure out where this information is, let's get it together and get it answered and do all that while we're still trying to work on dams and retaining walls and making sure that, maybe be thinking ahead that we can actually have somebody that maybe is wondering where there might be a grant we can apply for to get some roads fixed or a building repaired or those sorts of things.
Absolutely. So how do you want to do it?
I mean, we've had, I'm not gonna say we haven't had good luck, I mean, we certainly have had fair luck, accessing dollars from the outside. I always wondered what would happen if we had people that had time that were, you know, that really could be looking at every piece of mail and not being distracted.
So Article 4, to see if the town will vote to approve the select board to enter into
How about,
hire.
yeah, how about, see if the town will approve $2,500
To pay for it.
to fund information.
Oh, you're the information.
So yours
person.
are,
I'm
these
on
are
the
about
mediation.
mediation.
Well, let's get it straight.
Mediation first.
Mediation first, you wanna go mediation
I do.
first? I would think $2,500. I mean,
I don't know down how much money a consultant like that costs.
It's a good start. Good start. I heard a figure of $800 for half a day.
Could be.
That's what I heard per number. That doesn't mean that's the high or the low, but that was some local talent that we may or may not.
Okay. So $2,500.
Vote to transfer $2,500
To provide for mediation services.
Period.
from vote.
From the
Now Article 5.
To an account to be established to pay for mediation services.
You happy with that? So, now, Article 5.
I'll search out to see if the town will. That's it, that's all I got.
No.
That's all you got?
That's, you started, that's all.
Okay. Mary, I assume that in these 3 weeks you can provide us with data, but I don't know names, I don't know frequency, I don't know much what's going on with that, so some work has to be done in the background to get us there.
Just throwing some rough numbers together, it looks like if you had somebody for 5 hours a week, some weeks there wouldn't be any.
See, that is,
Some weeks there could be 20.
so then can that person be in for 20? Because that's the thing, it's not that it is steady. There are some weeks when that is all you do, and other weeks when you've got to...
Don't show up if you don't have anything to do.
Oh, what about the week when 20 is required?
Then you show up.
So you would be able to set it up so that somebody would come on a as needed basis.
As needed basis. So just, if you took 40 weeks left in the year and 5 hours a week, and I just threw $18 in there as a number, it would be $3,600. What do you think? You got to address it. You got to have the discussion. You got to address it, and you have to have the discussion.
Mary, is that number realistic, 5 hours a week?
As I say,
It depends.
Well, average in your mind, is what I'm saying, you know.
Can we talk about like the balance of the fiscal year?
Yeah.
if it can be used as needed in large chunks.
Yeah.
When they come in, 5 hours doesn't.
Right, understood, but it's 10 hours every other week or 20 hours.
Think of it as same as the lifeguard, right? Lifeguard doesn't show up on rainy days. There's nothing to do.
Okay.
Yeah, 20 hours a month is what it boils down to. Is that,
Yeah.
would that be helpful enough?
Yeah.
Should it be more?
I think it's very hard
I know, I understand.
to stop tomorrow. We wouldn't need it.
I understand,
If
yeah.
it's a base, then we both look at
Right.
it. I wish I could give you a better answer.
Mhm. And
Why don't we put $5,000 down, and then we'll have the data by the time we get to town meeting, and we can make that decision.
and there's nothing wrong with not spending the money,
No, not generally.
right?
Not generally.
So we're talking
Exactly, right? And we can actually come up with a game plan at our next meeting. It's just that the warrant has to be,
Right.
the warrant has to be signed before then.
So what I need is wording there, see the town will vote to approve $5,000, to transfer $5,000 from the voc account to, since we don't have a line that exists, to,
An information clerk. How would that be?
an account to be used to hire an information clerk to work on an as-needed basis. I'm just,
I think you're getting too wordy.
okay,
I think you're getting absolutely too wordy.
all right.
You're thinking that this needs to be a steady job. Our hope is that everything will snap into place and it won't be anywhere near a steady job.
Right, actually, my concern is to have it not be confused with a steady job.
Correct.
On an as-needed basis.
One of the things we'll probably have to work on is etching out a little, some type of job description to get that done too. Did you ever get the notes that Todd and I went through talking about job descriptions on, when you were gone on vacation and we went over some, police chief job descriptions? Did you ever get some notes on that?
I think I did, yeah.
So now we're up to 5 articles. Why don't we stop before we spend any more money? Paulette?
You guys were just mentioning something, and I wonder if it's a good time to have Article 6 for similar kind of situation, to set up someone to come in to actually help with grants. Because if that's where some money is, that might be a good way to spend some money, to get some money, because that does take time. And even with an information clerk, I would think that person can't work all by themselves. They're still going to have to be using some of Mary's time. But if somebody could just be focused on grants, even if it's just 20 hours a month, maybe that person could find something for us, even if it's somebody that's doing similar for some other town. Maybe that would yield some interesting grant monies for the town. We kind of mentioned it, but
And if you get a grant for a grant writer is what we need.
or fund it to get started, then that could be their first thing to fund.
A grant for a grant writer.
Well, if they get grants, then they're going to keep.
So this is one of the things that I've kind of been alluding to, is that I'm hoping this fall, before we get to budget season, we take a look at how the town office is set up. And I know that with the personnel board, when we get through this policies and procedures and start working with them on what people do and what their titles are and the authority they have, those are the things I really think we need to get ironed out in the fall. I mean, it'll make for a busy fall when we're trying to button up a lot of other things before winter, but we need to kind of figure out, because I don't necessarily think we're understaffed. I think it's just there's a certain amount of confusion on who's doing what and the surprises that show up in the meantime. Anybody think that there needs to be any more than 5 articles?
I think what Paul was talking about can be something in next year's budget. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. I think we need to look at the whole organization that we have in town hall before we go too far down that road.
Right.
So how many dollars do we have in here so far? We don't have a sum of money, but let's call it $5,000. We got 449.
75, and call it 8, right? And then,
We were thinking roughly $5,000 for fan warrant.
probably, and I have a question, do you want fan wart in the language?
No.
Just the invasives.
Basic needs. I mean, this isn't to take care of sharks or anything if they show up, sharks or anything like that.
They showed up. We'll have another special town meeting.
What do we say, $3,500, or $5,000 we're going to do for information, and then what, how much for mediation, $2,500?
25. And then roughly 5 in Article 1 and Article 3.
Roughly $13,000 to spend when we don't really know where we're at, but I don't think we're going to be in that position. That's 13,000, call it 15,000 over what we're projecting now is roughly $80,000 overfunded in vocational. I don't necessarily think it's irresponsible. And I think the other thing we need to look into in the meantime is, if you can make a big note, let's look into that building, those building funds, and see if there is a source there. That if there probably isn't, but
No, that's what I was saying about, maybe even tomorrow we'll have the special government county funds.
any liaison reports? Anything? Any holes up at the field?
They completed that. I don't know the status of it. I did call the engineer relative to the lake and reminded him that I wanted to be present for the inspection. This is the time for the inspection, and was wondering how the hydraulic setting was going, because that's going to be a showstopper. But he was hopeful on that. I'll leave it at that, and he said he'd let me know. So I will send that. No, I can't do that. I'll be joining Tommy when he comes, and probably the emergency. Keep you posted.
I've mentioned to the police chief and the fire chief, and I hope it's acceptable to you. Tell me if it isn't. But I'm thinking that our first meeting in October, I say it now before we get cluttered with whatever the issue of the day may be. But I think it would be a good idea to get a quarter of the way through the year and have the police chief, the fire chief, highway superintendent, and come back and just review those accounts and make sure that they're on page to where we want them to be. And
Makes sense.
you know, I mean, years and years ago, you know, you used to have them in almost every week. And we've certainly gone far away from that, but I would at least like quarterly to be brought up to date, figuring that we're all discussing with them anyway.
Good.
Okay?
And did you say first meeting in October?
First meeting in October. That'll get us through the first 3 months. We'll have the expense report. We can get an update of where we are, where we're going, how we're gonna get there. Good deal? Have we started on the grant money for Smith Road? Have we started on that project beyond the engineering, or?
Well, we've signed 2 separate contracts. One was for,
I think we signed 2 separate contracts twice by the time they got us.
one was for permitting, and the other was for, I don't recall, engineering, initial engineering or something, but I don't know. That's a good question for you to ask Tom, what the status of Smith Road is. I know I imagine they want to have it buttoned up before.
And I
snow
just saw
flies.
an engineering schedule come out.
What's that?
I shouldn't say engineering schedule. Schedule came out today for the first part of the process.
Oh, design.
Yeah. Design and permitting scheduling. I don't know if I put it in here as needed. I don't think I did,
Okay.
but I did see it was going back and forth.
Todd and I passed each other going in and out of the driveway of the highway department one day because I had a few minutes and I decided if anybody was there, I wanted to climb up and at least sit in the gray area.
Did you?
Yes.
I didn't.
I felt very
Space age?
I felt very out of place. No steering wheel, joysticks and
Everything's joystick.
joysticks and pedals, but
I didn't sit in it, but I was real happy when my road was nice and smooth about a week after it.
Yeah, they're using it now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, they're using a great, well, I suppose they get the army one too, but you really can see it. I couldn't believe it's like being in one of the boats down the glass bottom boats, you know? Because you can see them.
Nice job.
See the blade.
It was a really nice job. It should.
Problem is they get used to it and they'll start going faster. It's, no, I think it looks huge.
It's a big machine.
It looks huge, you know, I said, man, that's got a monster engine compared to the old one, and then we opened up the hood and it's, the engine isn't any really much bigger, it's just that there's like 3 feet of,
It's basically.
no, anti-pollution stuff packed in there.
Well, good.
I figure that's why I breathe easier every night.
Who drives it? Alan?
Tom said he was gonna try, I think Alan's been in it. I wouldn't be surprised if Todd gets around to. All right. Mail, Mary.
Yep. Just fast back over a few printouts for the file of some letters that I think you all got.
Oh yeah, they're in our folders here.
And we have those, and then under that is a notification about some work being done in Ashfield. The electric company.
Western Mass.
Yep.
Oh, dear Mr. Carter, the Western Mass Electric Company will be performing maintenance activities to ensure the transmission system meets current electric clearance codes. Along the existing right-of-way between the Berkshire substation and Hinsdale through Shelburne. some locations, the work will entail replacing existing structures, and in other locations, we will grade the midspan between the structures. So this is the high tension lines. This has been an ongoing project for them. In Ashfield, the work will take place off Bug Hill Road, Bear Swamp Road, Bellis Road, Bellingham Road, and First Road. Work is scheduled to commence in September and continue through the spring of 15. It says the Massachusetts Department of Public Utilities has instituted new regulations that require WMECO to notify the town in writing of planned construction activities that will entail vegetation disturbance. It is expected that the project will disturb vegetation as we access the site as well as grade the land. Senator Benjamin Downing sent a letter. Dear Chair Carter, thank you for contacting me to express the board's concerns with the proposed Kinder Morgan pipeline project. Over the past months, my colleagues and I in the Western Massachusetts legislative delegation have dedicated much time and staff resources to fully understanding this proposal. Representative Kulik, Cardy, Pignatelli, Mark, and I recently released a public statement in opposition to the project. And their statement is included below. Benjamin Downing. He didn't show up. He's the fellow that said this. No, he was should have.
No, it was Neil.
Congressman Neil. Oh, here's one from Tennessee Gas Pipeline. Dear Ashfield Board of Selectmen, this letter is in response to your letter dated the 14th of July, whereby the selectmen denied permission for Tennessee Gas Pipeline and its agents and contractors to survey on town road.
And actually, if I may interrupt, that's the one that was read at the meeting we were absent from. I put that in there in case we did have
Just so
something.
I know. Now I can see where that was coming from now. Thank you. You've heard it all before, you don't need to hear it in my melodious voice. Mass DOT, state aid. Dear board members, please be advised the payment voucher for the above amount, which is $177,503.61. The payment voucher for the above amount has been submitted to our state aid section in the Boston office on August 18th. We have attached the FY15 balance and expenditure sheet here. You please share this information with your highway and accounting departments. So the payment voucher is in. So this is what they put in was Baptist Corner Road, Howe Road, North Warder Road,
Which was Chadwick's or over the Andes?
That
was on towards Flag Mountain.
and Burton Hill Road. $177,000. So I guess we just gotta get the paving done. That's good. It's always nice that they've got money set aside for us. And then Zoning Board of Appeals, notice of decision, August 25th. That was filed today.
Came in today.
Gordon L. Howes of Weaterview, what? WEATOQU
filed an application with the Ashfield Town Clerk on the 1st of July, requesting a special permit to demolish a lawfully existing non-conforming residential structure on a lawfully existing non-conforming lot at 162 Buckland Road, and reconstruct a new residential structure. Mr. House is in contract to purchase the property from the current owners, Peter and Helen Billy of Manila, New York. So the zoning board of appeals scheduled a hearing for August 12th. They published it. The board members sat on the board. As posted, a brief site visit was included as part of the hearing. There were no objections to the proposal from any person present, nor any written communications. The project will be connected to both, I'm going over here to the wastewater treatment facility and the water district, just like the other one. Decision, this is what I was looking for. A motion was made and seconded to grant Gordon House a special permit to remove and rebuild a non-conforming structure on a non-conforming lot. The special permit is contingent on his purchasing the property, completing the hookup to the wastewater treatment facility, and conforming to any restrictions or mandates issued by the Conservation Commission. It was by a unanimous vote of all 3 sitting members. So Molly Louise, Kit Nyland, and you're in. Good. So we know what's going on when we start hearing demolition.
Let's see, there's 162.
167, I think it was. Which is the lakes. I'm pretty sure that's the lakes side of the fucking road. 162. You're right, 162. What's that? So on Thursday, there's a select board 101. Are we planning on attending? Any of us? I've got it in my schedule.
So what?
Ron, you've been a couple of times.
I have, but Bob Dean is going to be talking at that one, and I might go.
Okay. Probably if you send them an email so they have enough cookies for the 3 of us.
Double.
Yeah, double the cookie quota. So, okay.
Are you 2 going, did you say?
Yeah, I got it on my schedule. It seems like unless the world falls apart. My world falls apart in the meantime. And then I thought was really interesting that I actually put on my calendar was the communication we got by email, the MMA. It's a short meeting.
But it's in Boston, right?
I mean, I've got some business to do in Boston, and that was September 18th from 11 to 1. It's funny, it's the Selectmen's Association regional meeting, and it's going to be in Boston. It's at the MMA office in Boston from 11:30 to 1 on the 18th. I bet there'll be cookies there.
Yeah.
But get ready. Plenty of coffee, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But
I haven't decided on that one. It's going to be tough for me because I have to work that night. And I think I'm in Fairhaven that night, which is down the coast, down by New Bedford.
yeah.
So it might be tough to get there in time. So I'll have to look at it.
You mean the night before you're going to be there?
No, that night. That night. So I don't know if I can make it from Boston to Fairhaven in time. Because I need to be in Fairhaven by 4.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
You can do that anyway.
I'm about that.
Huh? out, you leave at 1, if you get in your car by 1:30, you're just gonna go down south there a little bit and catch 24 and come across to 495 and down. And I make it sound easy, don't I?
It makes it sound really easy, but it's not that easy. I mean, you got the route right.
Huh?
You got the route right, but the traffic is like imaginary in your head right now. So.
Yeah, you can take 24 almost to Providence, right?
You take 24 all the way to 495 and then bump over to, but the traffic.
Yeah, I can't remember which side Fairhaven's on. Anything else? What would you like on the next agenda?
I put something forth to you, Mary,
Yep.
relative to Ruth Crafts.
Okay.
And she wants to set up an endowment and get permission to do so relative to the planting of flowers in the watering trough. The reason she's coming to us, besides setting up the expense account, is because it's in a public way too, and she, just wants to make sure it's done right. So I asked Susan Todd, who put it forth to me, if she'd be interested in presenting it to us. And I don't know, I haven't done
Put that on the agenda.
Yeah. And I asked her to coordinate with you directly.
And so we haven't done the whole agenda yet, but shall I go ahead and coordinate on that for the 8th?
I do have a question for you, Mr. Chair. What about sidewalks? I mean, winter's coming, and we have one of our STMs, or annual. We're supposed to do something, and I'm better if I'm warmed up to ideas or start thinking of them rather than putting a corner by them,
Well, what I've done so far, I am trying to avoid putting a committee together.
Okay.
And so far, I've met with 3 of the landowners, the property owners that have what I would consider the longest length of sidewalks that need to be attended to,
Yeah.
and trying to pull them to get them behind it and come up with a plan. So
Is it anything we can help her on, or is it under
I
control?
think it's going fine. I think that, I was figuring that we were probably going to take care of it in September or October.
Okay.
But I think everybody's kind of getting behind the idea.
Good.
And,
Thanks for doing that.
I don't want to commit anybody to anything in particular, but I think there's a way to do this without putting anybody feeling like there's undue weight on their shoulders or making them feel guilty or doing any of those things. So I have, when I'm walking the dog and I see somebody's on their porch, I've got a couple more people to come to, so it is on my mind. It is something that I'm trying to, and I figure since I'm accessible right here in the middle of town,
It's the least
that is
you can do. I mean, you got the Wi-Fi coming in, and why not? You should be doing it. Yes, Thank you for doing that.
Well, don't thank me until I come up with a solution.
Okay.
But I don't think it's going to be. I don't think.
You got Plan B you're working on too?
Well, I think it'll be fine. I think we can come up with Plan A. I mean, Plan B we don't need until after Plan A fails.
Wow.
Right?
Sure.
Sure. All right, but we'll need, Mary, you're going to have to send out an all points bulletin for us.
When is it going to be, Mary, more or less? This week, right?
No, wait a minute, I'm trying to understand what you're
That's
saying.
exactly. The warrant's ready.
Right.
Bang. I would say that we need to have it signed by next Wednesday,
Right, and
so it can be posted.
just.
Remember, that it's a short week next week.
Oh, right,
It's a short
and a little bit of a short week, so I'm taking a day this week, so, I would say I may have it, I know tomorrow's looking for, may have, well, I'm sorry, I'm thinking out loud.
Let's have it so it's ready to be signed on the 8th, so it can be posted on the 9th.
No, it's gonna be posted on the 8th. So
It's
I
gotta
was
be-
gonna say, I may have it ready to be signed.
Oh, no, I'm sorry,
This
I got my
Thursday.
date, I got my dates wrong.
I'm gonna try to have it signed this Thursday, if not before.
That's right, because the 8th is Monday, so I apologize. So we need to have it signed by the 5th anyway.
Yeah, and if I can have it ready this Thursday, I'll let you know Wednesday night and then be here all day Thursday if you want to come sign it.
Or it can be signed after Labor Day. I mean, it's got to be posted, right, Labor Day is the 1st. So
Right, right.
It's
Yeah, so you
not
wanna
going to be
post it.
signed the 2nd or 3rd.
Yep, but if I can get it done sooner, I will. And
I really think you need to pull it together, Mary. Get me the warrant, email it, let Donna take a look at it and send it back, and just, that should be a 15-minute project.
Oh,
Just
yeah,
have
but I
it come
mean,
back.
before you sign it, I'm thinking about the signing copy.
I want Donna to look at it
First.
before we sign it, right?
And she's on vacation all week. So if you want to look at it before you sign it, we can hold it till she looks at it and you can sign it first, but she won't be able to look at it till, I'm a little lost on the calendar here, but is Monday the 1st?
Monday's the 1st.
That's the
Labor Day
holiday.
can't be any earlier than it is this year.
So does that work? Or does it not?
Yeah, it just has to be up by the 8th. So that would be hard.
Right, so we need to get it, put it on her hot plate. I think you can, Tina's still in the office,
Oh, yeah.
so we can put that kind of email
Yep.
to her this week. Tell her to put it on the top of her pile.
Yep.
That's not a problem.
No.
I was listening to that on the radio today. It said that, half the world's on vacation in the United States this week. Can't have a 3 or 4 day weekend. We gotta have a 10 day or something.
I'd be surprised how many.
Oh, the way it puts on the rest of us. All right. Motion to adjourn?
Public comment or?
Public comment? Any public comment? I'm sorry. There isn't any.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. We're adjourned at 9:41.